everybody. Warm welcome to Amazing You Podcast and YouTube channels, the channels where stories of resilience, triumph, and unwavering hope come to life. And in each episode, we dive into the inspiring journey of individuals who have faced the toughest challenges heads-on and emerge victorious. Our aim is to be a beacon of inspiration, offering a guiding light to those navigating through difficult times. And whether you are dealing with health challenges, professional setbacks, or personal struggles, this channel is dedicated to uplifting your spirit and showing you that even in the darkest moments, there is a path to hope and triumph. So join us, everyone, to share powerful stories that transcend adversity, reminding you that resilience is a force within us all. So be prepared to be inspired to find the strength to navigate life challenges. I am your host. My name is Dr. Rani Tanakodi. I am a clinical hypnotherapist using Rapid Transformational Therapy. I am a Mars, Venus, Life and Relationship coach, astrologer, tarot reader, past life regression practitioner, and star magic practitioner. And today I have the great pleasure to introduce you to a colleague of mine. We studied together RTT, and her name is Bianca Stumm. She is a psychedelic-assisted mental health facilitator specializing in Ayahuasca and Magic Mushrooms. And she has a foundation in Rapid Transformational Therapy, in hypnotherapy, and she has also been inspired by Dr. Gabor Maté as she adopts a trauma-informed approach. Bianca helps individuals to navigate mental health challenges, life transitions, and spiritual awakenings. So very warm welcome, Bianca, to Amazing You Podcast.
Thank you so much, Rani. It's good to see you and, share with you our stories and catch up after a while and see where life is taking us. It's an honor and it's a pleasure. And thank you for doing this. And thank you for sharing, with people these beautiful transformational stories and, showing that it's possible, that we don't have to stay in our limitations. We don't have to stay in difficult situations. We can actually change. And I think, one of the beautiful Spanish sayings is that when you change your view, everything is changing. It's and we all have that potential.
Absolutely, that is so true. Thank you so much, Bianca, despite your busy schedule, for being on the podcast, because I've been waiting for you for a very long time, and today is the right time. I'm super excited to have you. And my first question, it's been wonderful talking to you before the podcast because your journey is an amazing journey, is a mind-blowing journey. Would you please share with us briefly about your story, Bianca?
Yeah, sure. Okay, where should I start? I'm gonna put it in a very short story, as in traumatic childhood, parents separated. My mom was depressed. She couldn't, handle me. She gave me away. I felt in my childhood that, they were pushing me around in my family, from my mother to my aunties, from my aunties to my grandparents, like never feeling really safe or at home, right? And that was one of the big topics that came out through these sessions with RTT and also with the medicine, like this feeling that I was never safe, right? And then I kind of did. My mother killed herself when I was 16, which obviously was very traumatic. But then I kind of had a good period in, my 20s with career. I kind of found that, there is this thing that if I work hard and, I learn and I develop, then I can do well. And that gave me a lot of self-confidence, right? When I was 31, I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, although I was in a relationship for 6 years with that man. He wasn't the right person to have kids with. And I knew I'm going to be a single mom. I still decided to stay with the kids. I moved from Romania, my home country, to Germany. it was really hard. The kids were 1 year old at that time, and working and having to take care of twins.
Yeah.
and and then I met a person there that I married, and it seemed beautiful because my career was going well. Our marriage was pretty stable. We lived in a big house. We had nice cars, nice vacations. Like from the outside, my life seemed perfect, but in the inside, I was falling apart, really. And what happened there, obviously I didn't know at that moment, but what happened there was that I basically married an image of my mother. And he would talk down to me a lot, and we had a lot of competition between the two of us. And that way it triggered my childhood trauma that was never resolved. Right.
Yeah.
So I got depressed. I was struggling with depression for like 6 years. And suddenly my body started failing. I was always sick, always having some sort of cold and something different, back pain, headaches. There was even the concern that I might have cancer. It wasn't cancer. It wasn't benign. It was benign. It wasn't, cancer. But all of these things kind of made me look into different directions, right? What's going on here? And then I discovered the book of Gabor Maté, When the Body Says No, right? And that was that was one of the first things that made me see, hey, there's something deeper here, that, maybe all of this is related to my trauma that I never really dealt with, even though I had a good understanding of it. I also got lucky that the psychiatrist that I went to for the depression never gave me SSRIs. He understood that there's something deeper going on here, and that if I take the SSRIs, I'm never going to get better. So that was the thing where I was lucky. I was also disappointed because I wanted a quick fix, right?
You wanted your tablets to go home.
Exactly. But he did me a favor, really. And so there was one final trigger or event that made me be full in on my own healing. And that was my husband beat my kids. And that was like, I got beaten when I was a child. I don't want that for my kids. So I moved out. But that was also the beginning of my healing journey. I need to fix this. I want some quality of life. I want to be there for my kids. I want to enjoy life and be a good mom and just, be okay. Right. And that took me down a lot of rabbit holes, looking into, how can I fix this? And looking into nutrition, looking into body movement, yoga, meditation, even neurofeedback. So many different things that I did, supplements, so many things that I did and I learned, and all of them had small effects. And to give you one example, I was struggling with insomnia for like 10 years. And then, learning about how the body works and about our body chemistry and things like that. And I learned that magnesium might be helpful with that, right? So I tested myself for magnesium. I saw it's low. I started taking magnesium. The first evening when I took a high dose of magnesium, I slept like after 10 years. Okay. And I was so furious, Rani, because I was thinking, how is it possible that I'm in my doctor's office like every third week or something? And he never asked me about, let's look at your nutrition. Let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at, what's going on inside of you. He would give me sleeping pills. But that was also the moment where I realized I have to take this into my own hand. No one else will do this for me. And this is how it started. And then finally I discovered ayahuasca, and ayahuasca was like a catalyst, like, pushing me through everything that I needed to heal. And that's the story in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've got so many questions for you because what you do is very new for the audience. So I would like to go more in depth into that modality, that very interesting modality that is so popular nowadays and that is helping so many people to heal from their trauma. And so I would like you to explain what psychedelic-assisted mental health facilitation entails, Bianca.
Okay, so let's start with, what is psychedelics? What is a psychedelic anyway? Because I think there's a lot of confusion around that. Like people sometimes call it hallucinogenic drugs. And because of that name drugs, they think like, oh, it's all bad. And they compare it to cocaine or heroin or whatever. Like, first of all, it's not that at all, right? Psychedelics are not addictive. They work on a different system. They work with the serotonergic system of your brain, not with the dopaminergic, as opposed to cocaine. I like to make the comparison with cocaine. Cocaine is highly addictive, right? Many people use cocaine more than would admit use cocaine. It's so interesting to see that. But psychedelics are not addictive. What do they do? How do they work? And I like to address this in several ways. What do they do in the body, and what do they do in the mind, and what do they do for your soul? Like, really, right? In the body, psychedelics, whether it is ayahuasca, which contains DMT, whether it is psilocybin or even LSD, what they do, they help your brain create new connections. When you take a psychedelic drug, what it does, it turns down that part of you, the default mode network, that part of you that is always repeating the same thoughts. And also that part of you that contains the persona, the I, the ego, right? That gets a little bit less. And instead, other parts of your brain start communicating with each other, right? That can give you new perspectives. That can make a big shift inside of you in terms of, oh, I can see it like that. I don't need to stay with this idea, I cannot, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not capable, or I can shift that. I can find the solution. I can find that power within me by creating new networks, new connections between the neurons, right? It's like, when we use always, and especially you see that with rumination a lot, when you use the same connections in your brain all over again and again, they get stronger, right? And then it becomes like an obsession. But then when you start breaking that a little bit down and you create new paths, and then you can go down a new thought and a new behavior then, right? First there is a thought and then there's a behavior, but created by that connection and by that thought, right? And it kind of opens you up to new perspectives, and that's the way it changes the brain. Also, another thing that they do, they connect left and right brain, right? The left brain is the logical brain where we have all the data, the facts, the information, the mathematical, the logical stuff, right? The right brain is the creative brain, is the one which it's connected, if you wish, to your soul, to your intuition, to your creativity, to thinking in new ways, thinking outside of the box, right? And it has shown, like science shows, that psychedelic drugs or medicines, they strengthen the connection between the two brain halves, the corpus callosum, which is the part of the brain which is connecting the two halves, that is being strengthened with these medicines. And then there's some other effects as well. There's neuroneogenesis happening. That means these medicines will help you create new brain cells. They literally make you more intelligent, right? They help to renew your brain, right? So there's that aspect. And also there's a couple of other things, like when your brain is flooded with these medicines that are trying to find the serotonin receptors, if there's not enough receptors, it will signal to the body, create more receptors, which is how basically they help you heal depression, right? I'm going to create more receptors so that my own chemicals, my own bodily chemicals have receptor sites, so I can create my own chemistry in my own body of serotonin and dopamine and feel-good molecules that our body knows how to create. So it teaches the body how to readjust for mood control, basically, right? So that's the physical level. That's what's happening on a physical level. On the mental level, we already talked a little bit about it, like just giving you these new perspectives, and I can see it in a different way. I don't have to stay in the victimhood. I don't have to stay with this habit. I can loosen up a little bit and see things from a different view, open little doors that I've never dared to open, right? And that alone, like this small shift that we see, it can change someone's life. Like even if it doesn't seem very impactful in that moment, sometimes when I talk to people after a year or two, that the amount of changes that happen in their life is just incredible, right? Now, on the spiritual level, we are very much disconnected. We are all very much in the left brain, right?
Yes.
And we are very much disconnected from our, whatever you want to call that part of us, the higher self, our divine part, the soul. There's many ways or many words for the same thing. If you in psychological terms, you could call it the collective consciousness or the collective unconscious, as Jung would say, right? It doesn't matter what you want to call that part of you. It helps you reconnect with that, which kind of gives you back your intuition, right? And when you go and you act from a place of more intuition, then you can have less fears and less anxieties because you kind of feel things. You kind of feel, is this person right for me? Or is this situation, should I do this or that? Because you're more connected to that part of you who has a deeper level of knowledge than just that of the logic, right?
Wow, thank you so much for explaining that to help the audience to understand, because there are so many misconceptions about
Absolutely.
psychedelics. Can you share with us some of the misconceptions that people have about psychedelics and mental health?
Yeah, first of all, the biggest misconception is it's all drugs, it's all bad, it's all addictive, it's not good for you, it's the devil's work, right? Now, there's so much research. I've just been this year to the ICPR International Conference for Psychedelic Research. So many studies, Rani. I was, watching like 30 studies that show the benefits of these medicines. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful to see all of this research. But like, while some people talk about it, I actually do it,
That's great, because you use the theory and you put it into practice. You learn the theory and you put into practice. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's beautiful. Like, let's do the research. But the research has been there since the 50s, 60s, right?
Okay.
And, there's more and more research coming out, and all of this research kind of goes into convincing governments, hey, this is a good thing, right? This is a good thing. But to make that shift in society, it takes a while. And and to be honest, I do think that in the 60s, there has been a little bit of an abuse of these medicines. They've been used in ways that scared society a little bit. Are we moving into anarchy, right? Was all this flower power, which did bring us a lot of beautiful things, the culture, the music, the art, and even, this idea, hey, maybe we don't need, or not everyone needs to be in such a rigid kind of structure, of societal structure, right? But also it felt like there was too much chaos. People were not responsible around it. And I think that's where it would be important for people, and this is why we're having these conversations, for people to understand they are not to be abused. They are like used in a self-development, healing context, it's one thing, but used in an abusive way for raves and parties, and it can be dangerous, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, these are some of the misconceptions of it's all bad, it's all illegal, it's all, and that's not the case. So there are countries where these medicines are legalized or at least decriminalized. More and more countries open up. A couple of states in the US already legalized the use of MDMA and of psilocybin. Australia completely opened it for medical reasons, psychedelics, psilocybin, I think, and MDMA, ketamine, and I'm not sure if even ayahuasca it's legal in Australia for medical use, right? So it's not all bad, it's not all illegal, but it all comes down to information and responsibility about the use of them. Because one of the things that we often see is people using them irresponsibly, just taking some psychedelic drug for the first time at a party, and then they have a bad what they call a bad trip. Because one of the things that these medicines do, they bring out inside of us subconscious stuff, some things that we have repressed, right? And then imagine you're at this rave and you're a little bit of anxious anyway because you're taking drugs for the first time, right? And then there's so many people around you, and it's not the right environment for you to have a healing experience, and you're scared and all that. Of course, you're going to have a bad trip. What else? This is why
Yeah.
it's important to use them responsibly.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And you talk about safety is crucial when working with psychedelics and being responsible. Because you do a lot of retreats where people come and experience those ceremonies with you, what measures do you take to ensure that clients have a safe experience, Bianca?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have an introductory call with everyone who wants to come to the retreat. And what I scan for is mental health, physical health. And I often ask the question, is it the right moment in your life? Right. I also take a look a little bit at age, because if a person is under the age of 25, like when their brain is still so malleable and so open, like, is it really necessary to take the big hammer,
Okay.
And sometimes there are valid reasons, trauma and things like that. And then, of course, I'm going to work with these people as well. But if it's more out of curiosity, then I'm going to say no, right? In terms of physical health, especially with ayahuasca, there's a couple of contraindications. People cannot be on SSRIs, for example. That can literally kill you if you combine SSRIs with ayahuasca. High blood pressure is another contraindication with ayahuasca. Now, when it comes to psilocybin and mescaline, San Pedro, it's or even LSD, but I don't work with LSD. It's not that bad. So there are a lot of studies, more and more coming out, where they actually take people who are taking SSRIs and they give them psilocybin to kind of treat the depression, to treat the causes, right? And then take them off gradually from of the SSRIs, which I find it's a great thing, but it doesn't work with ayahuasca at all. With ayahuasca, you cannot take any kind of medication that works with your brain, right? As I said, there's a couple of contraindication in those terms, so there's the aspect of physical health, physical safety, right? Then there's the aspect of mental health, mental safety. Psychedelics are very good for people who are kind of stuck, right? A little bit like in rigid structure, trauma, complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD, ADHD. All of these things work very well with ayahuasca. However, they're on the other spectrum where there's a lot of entropy in the brain in terms of a person is very volatile, schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar. These are contraindicated with ayahuasca or psychedelics in general, and it could make it worse, right? So those are the things that I'm screening for. And then I think what is important is for people to understand that once you start this process of bringing up from the subconscious, bringing up all of that stuff that is repressed inside of you, this is kind of an unstoppable process, right? It's going to go on. You come to a retreat and, ayahuasca helps you bring all of these things up, but then they are very much on the surface. And then comes the integration part, right? We talk about so much about integration when it comes to the psychedelic space. And what people need to understand is that it's not a one weekend fix or a one-time fix, but that's, when you leave the retreat, that's where the work begins. Because no amount of ayahuasca will fix your life. You will fix your life, right? And ayahuasca might give you the awareness of, hey, this is what is going on. You think you're, like for me back then, you think you're in a good relationship, but actually it's not. It's triggering all of that stuff that you have inside of you. And you just went into this relationship because it felt familiar, because you know that behavior from home. And we know this from our TT, you and I, right? That's what we go for.
Yes.
But then sometimes it's pretty hard to face those harsh truths, like, this relationship that I'm in is not good for me, or, the way that I was treating my kids maybe was not so nice, or so she confronts you with all of these things, and then it's up to you to kind of do the work and do the changes. And also, as I said, all of that repressed stuff now kind of will come up right? And sometimes people go through these waves of pain and sorrow and grief and guilt and shame and helplessness and hopelessness. All of these things like kind of come up, and then you have to deal with it, right? That's the healing power of it, because once you've dealt with it, you're free, right? But it's not easy while you're going through it. And having that awareness that, hey, this might happen, and this is why, as I said, we have these introductory calls, this might happen. When you know that that's the process, then okay, you take the risk and you say, I'm going to walk through this, and I know that I'm going to be fine in a couple of weeks, months, right? But if it takes you by surprise, it can be quite difficult, right? And then, to the integration part, we also offer an integration call after the retreat. Studies have shown that there's like 2 to 3 weeks of euphoria, right? After a psychedelic experience where you're all positive and you go home. It's like New Year's resolution, really, Rani, right?
The honeymoon period, honeymoon effect.
Exactly, or honeymoon effect, or New Year's resolution. I'm going to do all of these things, and subscription to the gym and all of that. You have this euphoria, and you do it for a couple of weeks, and then you slip, right? And that's when we reach out to people and kind of hold them a little bit accountable. How is it going? All of the things that you said in the sharing circle, in the integration circle that you're gonna do. How is it going? Are you doing them? Do you need support? Do you need us to, remind you? And then it brings back the feeling and that conviction. Oh, this is what I wanted to do, right? And then people kind of continue the path. And also we are there for them, afterwards as well, if they need counseling, if they need support. I work with a network of specialists who have been here. And with specialists, I mean, obviously RTT therapists, but also counselors, psychotherapists, even nutritionists, life coaches, etc., that I can refer people to when they struggle, right? And these are all people who have been to our retreats. These are all people who know how we work and can continue, right? They don't know that it's not that I need to teach them again what a psychedelic experience is like or whatever. They can really help from a place of knowing I've been there.
Yes, I think it's very important to have this support that they can get after the session, after the retreat, where they know there is support, there is help, and there is a follow-up that is done. So they are not left all by themselves on that journey. There is, you are there, you offer that kind of support to surround them.
And also more and more I'm looking into the community aspect, because often we feel so isolated and so alone, right? In our journey, it feels like, oh, I'm the only one who struggles, but everyone struggles, right? And then in our retreats, being small groups, people realize, oh, I'm not alone, and another person is going through something similar, and then they connect and they stay in touch, and we create WhatsApp groups where they can stay in touch and talk to each other, and sometimes people just meet up somewhere, and which is beautiful. And also since I'm pretty often in London, and we have a lot of customers from UK, especially from London, we have a group there with whom I do like once a month or once every 2 months, we do a dinner together and kind of catch up, what's going on in your life, and get people to talk to each other and meet up and create connections, because it's so important to have that community aspect and not feel so alone and isolated in your own process.
I think that's a great thing that you are doing, because we have to help people to build that community again, to create that sense of connection with each other, And I think you are doing an amazing job. Wow. That is really, really wonderful to hear all the great things you are doing. You're not only helping them in the retreat, but you also follow up, and you also keep them connected in a group, in a community, because that's the way forward, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then more and more I'm looking into that direction. Not next year, but probably in 2 years, I'm looking to open a community center where people can come and stay for a couple of weeks when they are going through something in their life. They have, decisions to take and things like that, which is not going to be, the focus is not going to be the medicine, but the community, right? To learn from each other, to share our gifts, to share, hypnotherapy sessions and whatever people are able to share with each other. And so, looking forward to that.
Wow, that is great. Can you share with us some of your future plans, future projects that are coming in the next few years?
Yeah, sure. So now I have one retreat center in Portugal, in the
Okay.
Algarve. Next year we're gonna have a second one in Valencia, in Spain. So we are expanding a little bit. This one that we have on Algarve is more on the low price kind of budget, kind of spectrum. The one in Spain is gonna be a little bit more on the mid level, because there are people who don't want to sleep in bunk beds. They would like to have a little bit more privacy, and they would like to, and they can pay for it, right? So we're going to have that as well. We're going to have there a pool and a sweat lodge and a nice garden and good food and all of these things. It's not that we don't have good food now, but a little bit more higher. And then indeed, like in 2 years, community center. So that's going to be then the next project. I am actually looking right now. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Maybe I shouldn't spoil, but I am looking actually at the place in Cambodia for that, to have a community. And what I want to do there is going to be a program kind of aimed at depression, which is a little bit more long term, right? Like 6 weeks there, where we look into nutrition, when we look into habits, when we look into building up some tools around resilience and meditation and yoga, and work with the body, work with the psyche, work with the soul, in communities together, so people don't feel that isolated, and then let them go home and practice what they've learned, and then have them back in a couple of weeks, couple of months, have them back to refresh. And so I'm looking into building a program like that. I don't think there's anything like that, and I know depression is not something that you're gonna fix quickly in a weekend. So yeah, those are some of the plans. I do want to go more on podcasts, so thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
To inform people a little bit more about, hey, there are tools, there's so many tools.
Yes, I think this is really exciting, looking ahead, the things you've got. I wish you a lot of luck, a lot of success, in expanding your business globally. I think that is really, really important because mental health is a big issue and people need to get help. And what you are doing is such a fabulous work that you are doing. Really, really happy that you got to share today with us. And before we finish, I've got one question to ask you. I know you've been reading a lot, many impactful books in your life. So could you highlight a few that have profoundly influenced you and briefly explain to us why?
Yeah, it's hard to choose. I think I already mentioned, When the Body Says No by Gabor Maté. That was really like, that light bulb moment. You mean, my health is in my hands, So, and really understanding my body better and what I was going through and all of these things. So that was definitely one with a big impact. But then there have been books like The Power of Now, right? From Eckhart Tolle, which was like if I strip away all this anxiety around the past and the future, then I'm actually fine. That moment of realization in the now, usually there's no threat, right? So that's a beautiful lesson, a beautiful teaching. One of the books that helped me a lot integrate my ayahuasca experience, interestingly, was my first one, was Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Right.
To understand, for me, it's always important to understand these things that are happening to us from several layers, several perspectives, the 3D world perspective, what's happening in the body, what's happening, in this world, but then what's happening on an energetic level, what's happening in the mind, what's happening in our soul, or whatever you want to call that part of us. And Becoming Supernatural was a very impactful book for me. But then also books like what was the name of it? Live Long Enough to Live Forever by Ray Kurzweil. It kind of opened my horizon in a way. So that book is about the main message in that book is that we as a race will become immortal through technology, through, changing our genes and things like that. So we're going to become immortal. It's just a matter of when, not if. It's just a matter of when. And when I read that book, he was saying that, it's 20 years that we're gonna have the technology to make our bodies immortal. That doesn't mean that the bus will not hit you. The proverbial bus can still kill you, but we're gonna be able to reverse aging.
Oh, yes.
Right?
And I think some people are already doing it.
Absolutely. Some people are already doing it. Like, that was the revelation. There's people like David Sinclair who have shown in the lab that they can reverse aging in a mouse eye. They went for the eye because the eye is a relatively isolated organ, right? So they could prove, compared to the rest of the body, here is what's happening in the eye, right? And he says as well, we're like 10 years away from immortality. And to me, Rani, opening these spaces of, this is such a big contrast between a field of endless possibilities and this general feeling of the population of it's all bad. It's all war. It's all, person against person and country against country and me against the government. And just, like, when I understood that there is a world which is totally beautiful and positive within this world, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So many possibilities and so many. It's then when you realize that, then it's a choice of, do I want to stay in the past? Do I want to stay in, those things that feel heavy and difficult? Or do I want to look into the future, which is full with possibilities?
Absolutely.
And to me, when I look in the media, you see the news and all you see is war and politics and this and maybe some small talk about some or some gossip about some stars and right about some football players or things like that. That's what you see in the media. And nobody talks about, for example, just to give you an example, nobody talks about, well, if we become immortal, who is becoming immortal? Everyone? And if everyone is becoming immortal, what do we do about population control? And like, these are the major topics to me. This is what I would like to see in the media, right? And having these conversations.
Different kind of conversation, yes, yeah.
Having these conversations and creating that awareness for the general public, I think, thank you for doing it, and let's do more.
Yes. Bianca, it's been very interesting, very powerful having you on the podcast. And can you share with us one last thing? How can the audience stay updated or get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, they could go to the webpage, vineofthesoul.com. If you Google Vine of the Soul, you're going to find us. Also, if you Google me, Bianca Stumm, you're going to find me on LinkedIn or Facebook so, yeah.
All right, Bianca, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to the audience, and I wish you a lot of success. I can't wait for you to come back and share with us your projects in a few months, in a few years. It's going to happen. So I am really, really excited because I know where I met you. You were in a different space.
Totally.
Oh my God, it's been 4 years. It's like complete transformation. It's a new Bianca that I see, and I'm very happy to see that. And keep on growing, keep on evolving and doing the great work and shine your light, and we need you.
But even in that, there's a beauty, Rani, because this is how I learned that I want to lead by example. I want to open the door, I want to test it on myself, and then I'm going to show other people, hey, there's this option. You don't have to take it, but there's an option.
Yes. And you followed your heart.
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you to the audience for watching, sharing, and subscribing. And remember that you are amazing. You have always been, and you always will be amazing. And take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rani, for everything.
You are welcome.